the Green Bay Packers showed up and collected a victory. They clinched a playoff berth by producing the most dominant win that they have had in a decade. And Josh Jacobs, a former Raider, 107 yards from scrimmage. And he also had a touchdown for the Packers, a sixth straight game as Green Bay gets the first shutout of the NFL season. Only a couple weeks to go in the season. That's it. 34-0 over those pathetic Saints on a Monday night. Green Bay up to 11 wins, 11-4 now, and they are in the postseason for the fifth consecutive appearance. Well, not consecutive, fifth postseason appearance in 6 years. So 5 out of 6 for the Packers, but they're into the playoffs. Here's Matt LaFleur, the Green Bay Packers coach, who points out that this was just kind of one of those nights you just show up and play, and you get a win, and you go home.
What's really cool is you're getting contributions from a lot of different people. So I think that is usually the mark of a good team.
Okay. And it's also the mark of the beast. I think I read that somewhere, the mark of the beast. Here's Jordan Love. Didn't do much statistically, didn't have to. The game was lopsided. Here's Jordan Love, who seems to be happy. Let's see how happy he is. Let's find out.
What does it mean to get into the playoffs? I'm sure this has been the expectation all along, but now that you've finally gotten there, what's the mood like?
No, it's big time. You know, that's something that obviously the goal is Super Bowl. So that's the first step right there, is making the playoffs. Obviously, this was a big time game to clinch that spot, and proud of the way we came out here and handled business. And yeah, so it's big time.
Okay, let me go into my bag of cliches here. I'll throw some cliches out, and then I'll fill the time. Yeah. Now, normally, I believe the better story is in the losing locker room, but not here. Very difficult to find an angle. We'll talk about the Saints in a second. But let us discuss, in general, the question, how impressed are you with the Packers' domination, 34-0 over the Saints in the primetime game? So I've got Chris Rock, hospital basement, and janitorial supplies. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make cheese curds. You do not get cheese curds better anywhere in the country than in Wisconsin. Top cheese curds, by far. All right, so in terms of how impressed are you with the Packers' domination, I just give it like a shoulder shrug. I do. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy, pal, to answer that question. This was a giant mismatch. New Orleans played without their quarterback. Granted, Derek Carr probably would have rode the vomit comet had he played, but he's out. Alvin Kamara, he gone. He's not playing. And several other key players who normally would be in there for the Saints were not. And as a result, you look at the gambling market, Green Bay was favored by 14.5 points. And the sharp bettors, the professional bettors, were betting on Green Bay, laying 14.5 points, which tells you all you need to know. The gambling market very rarely wrong. And Packers had home cooking and all that. But really, it goes back to the philosophy the great Chris Rock taught me years ago. You don't get credit for doing things that you're supposed to do. If you're a 14.5-point favorite at home, you should win by more than 14.5. That's exactly what the Packers did. It's also unbecoming to brag about accomplishments that you're supposed to achieve, like winning a game at home against a flea-ridden franchise like New Orleans. Now, Jordan Love was nothing magical in this game. He had rather pedestrian numbers, but that's the point. Now, Green Bay could have won playing backups. If Malik Willis had played this game, they would have won. They would have covered the spread. It was the varsity versus the junior varsity in this matchup. So, yeah, you get the win. Congrats, but let's not go overboard here. Now, turning the page. In the lead up to this game, we talked about this in a previous episode of the show. The Saints had borrowed a move right out of the playbook of the Jamaican bobsled team. We learned in recent days that the quarterback coach for the New Orleans football team, Andrew Janico, I believe is his name. So this guy said, you know what, I'm going to change it up a little bit here. I'm going to change it up. As we prepare the Saints to go to Lambeau, we're going to take inspiration from the Disney classic film, Cool Runnings. So Spencer Rattler said that the team had a meeting. They held a team meeting in the cafeteria freezer at the Saints facility there because it was very cold and they wanted to prepare. So they went over the script of the game, and it was very frigid there. The players stood around there like a bunch of numbnuts, and they went over the plays. So how did the New Orleans team do preparing for this game in a cafeteria freezer? How did that pay off? So it's a cool story, right? It's a good story. Let's see. They had 14 total first downs, 2 of them via penalty from Green Bay. They had as many trips to the red zone as we had, you and I. They had as many points as you and I had, 196 total yards. They averaged 3.7 yards per play. And Spencer Rattler looked like he should be delivering food, not delivering the football. 15 of 30, 50% completion percentage, averaged a little over 5 yards per pass, which is not good. Had an interception, underthrown pass, intercepted, and a passer rating of barely above 50. So the next time the Saints play in cold weather, instead of going to the cafeteria and the freezer there in the cafeteria, what they should do is go to the hospital basement. I believe that's where the morgue is located at the hospital, in the basement there. So just go down to the basement, and because that franchise right now is in the morgue. Now, speaking of that, all right, last part of this. So the Saints have come full circle here. When I was a kid, for much of my youth, the Saints were known as the Aints, and then they had a couple of good years, and then they even won a Super Bowl a long time ago. It's been a minute since they won the Super Bowl. And while the winds of change are blowing, you can almost hear them. We on this side of the microphone are hearing out of the shores of the mighty Mississippi that Derek Carr, who's hurt right now, that Derek Carr could remain as the starting quarterback in New Orleans in 2025 because of a salary cap issue. That reporting is out there. So this report said Derek Carr is in line. That's the way it was phrased. In line to return to the Saints in 2025 because of the cap. Believe it or not. Believe it or not. So on this one, I am agnostic is what I am. I'm agnostic on this one. I'm not a believer. And while it certainly looks bad from the outside, New Orleans is projected to be $63 million above the 2025 salary cap. OMG! You got to understand, right? You just throw numbers out there, and they're scary and all. I'm a salary cap truther. I believe that the NFL has mastered the art of finagling the books. If I'm not mistaken, the Denver Broncos this year were in salary cap hell. And Sean Payton, former Saints coach there in Denver, because of the contractual agreement they had with Russell Wilson, the Broncos let Russell Wilson go, and oh my God, they were screwed, completely cooked. And the Broncos are scratching and clawing and fighting for a playoff spot, but yet they're in salary cap purgatory, and they didn't keep the quarterback. It's creative accounting is what it is. Now, Derek Carr has got a $30 million base salary on the next year of his contract. That's fully guaranteed the third day of the league year. So the decision will be made rather quickly into the offseason. Now, we are betting on divorce court is what we're betting on. Here's why. Carr is 33 years old. You would have to be bonkers to bring him back. He is a placeholder. He's a temp. He's a Band-Aid. You don't keep a Band-Aid on for more time than it needs to be on, or you get an infection. And I expect him to move on as a football hobo to his next outpost, whether that's the Giants or the Jets or the usual suspects. But there will be a new field general in 2025. There'll be a coaching change. They've already fired Dennis Allen. They've got the interim coach now. So you got to think of this like janitorial supplies. Now, what does that mean? That means, like, if you go out and buy a new broom in the bayou, a new broom, right? New broom sweeps clean. So you're not going to take the other coaching staff's quarterback. Why would you do that? As we often point out on this show, if you move into a new apartment, you don't keep all the furniture in the apartment from the person that lived there before. You get your own furniture, even if you have to go down to IKEA and buy a bunch of stuff, but you don't keep what was in there already. You move on. So they're going to have a new coach. And whether that's drafting someone or signing someone out of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers roster, God only knows. But they will bring somebody else in there. So I do not buy the report that Derek Carr will be back. And if he is back, that's a bad job by the Saints. So the Packers are in the playoffs. The Saints, obviously, no show, pathetic effort, team that looked like they could not handle the rigors of the cold weather. We thought that would be the case, and sure enough, they went out there and non-competitive in that game.